Instagram, a place where we share our best moments, chase likes, and connect with strangers around the world. But behind the filters and perfect feeds lies something far more sinister. Some accounts don't just follow you, they watch you. Some messages don't just appear, they hunt you. And sometimes a simple post can cost you your life. Tonight, I'll share with you 3 disturbing Instagram horror stories that will make you think twice before you hit post again. Instagram has always been painted as a place of beauty, glamour, and curated perfection. But for those who dive too deeply, it becomes something far more dangerous. It all started with a girl named Lena, a teenager who found her escape from the dullness of everyday life through scrolling, posting, and collecting likes. Her feed became her identity. Every photo was carefully edited, every caption written to appear effortless, every moment exaggerated for an audience she didn't really know. To her, the approval of strangers mattered more than the conversations she avoided with her own family. She believed her worth was tied to the number of hearts under each photo, and slowly, reality blurred with the polished world she had created online. Lena's obsession with creating the perfect feed soon consumed her days and nights. She stopped eating with her parents, preferring instead to photograph her untouched meals for stories. She no longer met friends without making sure they had a phone ready to capture her candid laughs. Each moment of her life became a performance for an invisible crowd, and she didn't notice how empty it all began to feel. What unsettled her most, however, was not the emptiness, but the silence that followed when her engagement began to drop. The fewer likes she received, the more desperate she became to outdo her last post. It wasn't enough to show a smile anymore. She had to look flawless, dangerous, mysterious. Late one night, as she scrolled through other influencers' accounts, she stumbled upon a photographer's profile. His page was unlike anything she had seen before, moody. Haunting shots of models with faces partly hidden in shadows, photos that felt more like memories stolen than posed. She became obsessed with the aesthetic, and the more she browsed, the more she noticed something unsettling. Many of the girls on his feed had tagged accounts, but when she clicked on them, most were gone. Deleted, inactive, or completely vanished. It struck her as strange, but she brushed it off, thinking they might have just changed usernames. When the photographer followed her back after she liked one of his posts, her heart raced with excitement. He messaged her, complimenting her style, her poses, telling her she had a face made for his lens. No one had ever said that to her before, and the validation lit up her ego like a spark in dry grass. She ignored the way his words felt rehearsed, the way he avoided direct answers to her casual questions. What mattered most was that someone important had noticed her. That night, she lay in bed, staring at her screen, reading his messages, imagining the photos they could create together. For the first time, she felt as though she was about to cross into the world she had always envied on her feed, not realizing she was stepping into something far darker than she ever imagined. Lena's excitement grew with every message exchanged between her and the photographer. His username was simple, almost too simple, but his feed gave him credibility, and that was enough for her. He spoke with a confidence that made her feel chosen, as though out of the millions of users, he had found her unique enough to capture. He told her he specialized in urban portraits, candid moments that looked raw and cinematic. She imagined herself in those moody frames, her face half lit, her expression immortalized in a shot that would finally separate her from the sea of ordinary influencers. She didn't notice how vague he was when she asked about his past models, or how quickly he steered the conversation back to her appearance. He always wanted more pictures, sometimes asking her to send selfies immediately, as if testing how much she would comply. He convinced her that his process required spontaneity. Real art, he said, came from vulnerability, from moments people were too afraid to show. At first, she laughed at the thought of posing in ways she usually wouldn't, but his words carried weight. The more he spoke, the more she felt that not trusting him would make her look ungrateful, or worse, insecure. She reminded herself he was a professional, or at least he seemed to be, and professionals always had their methods. Besides, he had thousands of followers, which in her mind translated into legitimacy. Their conversations soon stretched into late nights, hours of him praising her potential and weaving dreams of projects they could build together. He described locations he wanted to use for their shoots: abandoned factories, quiet alleys, rooftops at night. There was something both thrilling and unsettling about those places, but when she hesitated, he reassured her that they were what gave his work authenticity. Anyone can smile in the daylight, he typed once, But only the brave let their darkness be captured. She copied the line into her notes, planning to use it as a caption one day, unaware of how carefully those words were chosen to lure her deeper. It didn't take long before he suggested meeting in person. The thought made her pulse quicken, equal parts fear and anticipation. He told her he had a new concept in mind, something that would set her apart, something that could go viral. He flattered her relentlessly, convincing her that she had the potential to become his next masterpiece, and the idea of being immortalized in his haunting aesthetic made her ignore the gnawing unease in her stomach. He proposed a time, a location at the edge of the city, a place she didn't recognize, but he promised it would be perfect for the vision he had in mind. The night before she was supposed to meet the photographer, Lena couldn't sleep. Her phone lit up again and again with messages, but this time not from him. A new account had slipped into her inbox, the profile blank. No posts, no followers, no name, just a faceless avatar and the username, watching, you. At first, she thought it was a prank. The message simply said, "Don't go tomorrow." She frowned, locked her phone, and tried to brush it off, but a few minutes later another ping came. He's not who he says he is. A chill ran down her spine. She wanted to reply, demand answers, but instead she put the phone face down on her bed. The silence lasted only a few moments before another message appeared. "You're in danger, Lena." Her heart raced. How did they know her name? She clicked on the account, hoping for clues, but there was nothing there, no information to trace. The emptiness of the profile made it worse, as though it existed only for her. Against her better judgment, she typed back, "Who are you?" No reply came. Hours passed, and though her eyes grew heavy, her mind refused to rest. At 20:47 a.m., just as she was drifting, another vibration jolted her awake. Don't trust him. Don't meet him. You'll regret it. She felt her chest tighten, as if the words themselves carried weight. In the morning, she convinced herself it was just an online troll trying to scare her. Instagram was full of them, and she couldn't let paranoia ruin her chance to finally be seen. But the messages didn't stop. As she prepared her outfit, another one arrived. "That dress looks nice. Perfect for photos." Her hand froze mid-air, eyes wide as she turned slowly to look around her room. No one was there. The curtains were drawn, the door closed, yet the message described exactly what she was wearing. Her stomach flipped with dread. She scrambled to her window, yanked it open, but saw nothing except the quiet street below. Every rational thought screamed at her to cancel, to stay home, to cut contact, yet the pull of validation was stronger. The photographer had promised her greatness, promised her something beyond the ordinary. She wanted to believe in him more than she wanted to believe in the faceless account trying to frighten her. She typed back to the stranger, her fingers trembling on the glass screen, "Stop messaging me." Within seconds, the reply came, "I'm trying to save you." Another followed almost instantly, each word like ice in her veins. "He's already closer than you think." Lena's anxiety grew as the day of the meeting crept closer, yet she couldn't bring herself to back out. The photographer's words echoed in her head, promising art, beauty, and exposure that could change everything for her. Still, the memory of those chilling messages from the faceless account gnawed at her. She scrolled through their brief exchange over and over again, debating if she should show them to a friend, but embarrassment stopped her. What if they laughed, told her she was paranoid, or worse, accused her of craving attention? She convinced herself it was safer to ignore the warnings and focus on what could finally be her big break. When she left her house that evening, the air felt heavier than usual. She clutched her phone like a lifeline, glancing at the glowing screen for updates. The photographer had texted her the location again, a half-abandoned industrial area on the edge of the city. It was the kind of place she'd normally avoid, but his reassurance that it was perfect for the mood silenced her doubts. The sun was slipping down, painting the streets in muted golden shadow. She checked her reflection in a store window as she passed, rehearsing how she would look when he finally saw her in person. Her Uber dropped her near the edge of the district, and from there she had to walk. The streets grew quieter with every step, buildings towering around her like watchful silhouettes. She kept glancing over her shoulder, certain she heard footsteps trailing her, but the street remained empty each time she looked back. Just as her nerves threatened to overwhelm her, her phone buzzed. A message from him. "You're close. Keep walking straight." Relief washed over her. He was guiding her, making sure she didn't get lost. But then another buzz followed almost immediately. This one wasn't from him. The faceless account had returned. Turn back now. Her breath caught. She hesitated in the middle of the cracked pavement, staring at both notifications, her mind a storm of indecision. She told herself she couldn't chicken out now, she was too far in, and she didn't want to seem unreliable. She pushed forward, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The last stretch of road was eerily silent, broken windows and rusted doors lining the buildings on either side. Another message from the photographer appeared. Almost there, I can see you. Lena froze. Her eyes darted around the empty street, searching for movement, but all she could see were shadows stretching long in the fading light. Then her phone vibrated again. From the Faceless account this time. He's watching you right now. Lena's fingers tightened around her phone as the screen glowed in the dim light, the conflicting messages pulling her in two directions. The photographer's words made her feel wanted, like she was finally stepping into something important, yet the Faceless account's warnings clawed at her nerves, making every sound in the empty street feel amplified. She swallowed hard and forced her legs to move forward, telling herself she was imagining things. After all, he had promised this was art, and art always required discomfort. She had repeated that phrase to herself so many times it had become a shield against her fear. The buildings loomed taller as she entered deeper into the industrial district, their broken windows staring like hollow eyes. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from him. I'll meet you at the old warehouse on the corner. She spotted it ahead, a crumbling structure with faded graffiti and a door hanging slightly ajar. For a moment she stood frozen, staring at the entrance, her instinct screaming to turn back. But her pride, her hunger for recognition, pushed her forward. She stepped through the doorway, her footsteps echoing against the concrete floor. The inside was darker than she expected, the air stale and thick with dust. A faint dripping sound echoed from somewhere in the distance. She clutched her phone and used its flashlight to cut through the shadows. Hello! She called softly, her voice bouncing back at her from the cavernous walls. Silence answered. She checked her phone again. Another message from him lit up the screen. Don't be scared. I'm here. She spun around, searching for movement, but saw nothing. Her throat tightened as unease seeped into her chest. Then the Faceless account chimed again. Leave now. He's inside with you. Her heart skipped. She raised the phone higher, shining the light into the corners of the warehouse, but only broken crates and rusted metal beams met her eyes. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She wanted to believe the photographer was just running late, that the warnings were nothing but a cruel joke, yet a sliver of doubt split through her resolve. She typed a message back to him with trembling hands. Where are you? A reply appeared instantly. Closer than you think. The phone nearly slipped from her grip. The words didn't feel like reassurance. They felt like a threat. Before she could react, another notification buzzed from the Faceless account, faster than she could process. Don't turn around. Lena's breath caught as the warning glared at her from the screen. The warehouse felt colder all of a sudden, the shadows pressing in around her like walls that were slowly shrinking. She stood perfectly still, paralyzed by the thought of someone standing just behind her. Her hand trembled as she gripped her phone tighter, its faint light the only barrier between her and the suffocating dark. Every muscle in her body screamed to turn around, to prove to herself that nothing was there, but the message burned into her mind, stopping her in place. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the distant drip of water and the faint hum of wind squeezing through broken windows. She forced herself to breathe, slow and shallow, and tried to reason it out. Maybe the Faceless account was just guessing, trying to frighten her by sending vague messages that anyone alone in a place like this would find terrifying. But then she remembered the earlier warnings, the way the messages had described her outfit, her movements, even her hesitation on the street. Whoever was behind that account wasn't guessing. They were watching. The thought made her skin prickle, and she felt as though unseen eyes were crawling over her from every direction. Her phone buzzed again, and she jumped at the sound. This time it was him. Why are you hesitating? I thought you wanted this. She swallowed hard, the words twisting into something darker than the flattery she had once clung to. Her thumb hovered over the screen, unsure if she should reply, when another message arrived instantly from the Faceless account. Run. The bluntness of the words sliced through her thoughts like a knife. She could almost hear it whispered in her ear, urgent and sharp. Gathering what little courage she had left, she took a step toward the door. The creak of her shoes against the gritty floor echoed too loudly, as though the sound would alert whatever might be lurking nearby. She quickened her pace, her breath coming faster, until her phone lit up again. This time it was a photo. Her stomach dropped. The image was of her, taken from behind, standing exactly where she had been moments ago, frozen in place with her phone raised like a lantern. Her grip went slack, and she nearly dropped the device. Someone had been in the warehouse with her, close enough to take the picture, and she hadn't heard a thing. Her instincts finally overpowered her pride. She bolted toward the door, her footsteps echoing wildly, her mind screaming that she was too late. Just before she reached the exit, her phone buzzed one more time. She glanced down despite herself, and the Faceless account had sent its final message. "You shouldn't have come here." Lena burst through the warehouse doors, the night air slapping against her face like a wake-up call, but her relief was brief. The street outside was darker than before, the streetlights flickering weakly, some extinguished altogether. She clutched her phone to her chest and glanced in every direction, but the silence pressed in on her just as heavily as it had inside. Her pulse hammered, the kind of fear that made every shadow seem alive. She told herself to keep moving, to put distance between her and the warehouse, yet her steps were unsteady, her ears straining for the sound of pursuit. Her phone vibrated again, and she nearly screamed. A message from him: "You look beautiful running." She froze, her mouth going dry, and slowly turned in a circle, desperate to spot where he could be watching from. The rooftops loomed, the alleys gaped like dark mouths, and the sensation of eyes on her became unbearable. She wanted to scream into the night, to demand that he show himself, but fear pinned her voice inside her throat. The Faceless account chimed in next, the notification glowing pale against the blackness. "Don't stop. Keep going." She began to run, her sneakers slapping against the cracked pavement, the sound too loud in the suffocating quiet. Every time she checked behind her, the street stretched empty, yet she couldn't shake the certainty that someone was just outside the edge of her vision, following her pace for pace. Her chest ached, her lungs begging for rest, but adrenaline kept her legs moving. She tried calling a friend, her trembling fingers swiping across the screen, but before the call could connect, another photo arrived. This time it was a shot of her mid-stride, hair whipping across her face, caught in motion under the broken streetlight. The realization hit her harder than the run itself. He wasn't far away, he was close enough to capture her every move, watching with precision. Tears blurred her eyes, and she stumbled forward, terrified of what might happen if she stopped. Her mind darted between the two accounts, torn between the voice that lured her deeper into this nightmare and the one that claimed to be saving her. Both seemed to know everything, both seemed impossibly close, and she couldn't decide which was worse, the predator or the ghostly observer. Another buzz came, and this time she almost didn't want to look, but instinct forced her. From the Faceless account: "You're heading the wrong way." A second later, from him: "Almost mine." Lena's legs burned as she pushed herself farther down the street, the messages colliding in her mind, until she could hardly tell which voice to listen to anymore. Every vibration of her phone made her flinch, but she couldn't stop checking, afraid that one unread message might mean her life. The world around her felt warped, the empty streets stretching longer than they should, the shadows twisting in ways her light couldn't fully reach. She realized she didn't even know where she was anymore, the familiar landmarks swallowed by the maze of abandoned factories and cracked pavement. The air smelled faintly of rust and damp concrete, and every gust of wind carried with it the illusion of footsteps behind her. Her phone buzzed again. She opened it with shaking hands. A new message from him read: "Don't fight it. You came here for me." Her stomach churned, bile rising to her throat as the words cemented what she had been trying to deny: that this wasn't some misunderstanding or artistic project. He had brought her here deliberately, trapping her in an environment where no one could help. Before she could process, another notification arrived almost instantly from the Faceless account: "Left turn. Now." She skidded to a stop at a crumbling intersection, the decayed street sign leaning at an angle. Without thinking, she obeyed, darting down the narrow path, her heart pounding at the thought that someone unseen was guiding her escape. The alley was even darker, the smell of mildew and garbage hanging thick in the air. She gripped her phone tight, the glow of the screen the only light to cut through the suffocating blackness. Halfway down, her device buzzed again. A photo this time. It showed her entering the alley only seconds ago, captured from a vantage point above. Her body stiffened, her breath faltering as her mind spun with the realization that someone had been watching from the rooftops. She tilted her head upward, but only blackness stared back, the shadows swallowing everything beyond the faint edge of her flashlight beam. She wanted to scream, but fear chained her voice. Another message from him came through. You can't hide. I see you. The words pressed down on her chest like weights, smothering any illusion of safety. Just as panic threatened to consume her, the Faceless account interrupted again, this time more urgent than before, almost safe. Don't slow down. She stumbled forward, torn between dread and fragile hope, yet every step echoed with the awareness that she was being herded, forced along paths chosen not by her, but by those watching from the dark. Lena's feet felt like lead as she continued down the alley, her lungs aching, her chest tight, but adrenaline pushed her forward. The Faceless account's promise of being almost safe rang in her head, but she couldn't silence the suspicion that safety was just another illusion. The street narrowed until she emerged into a small courtyard hemmed in by towering buildings, their windows shattered like hollow eyes staring down at her. The place felt wrong, too quiet, as though it had been waiting for her arrival. She slowed her steps, gripping her phone like a lifeline, her flashlight beam cutting through dust and debris that littered the cracked ground. The silence was heavy, disturbed only by the faint buzz of her phone vibrating in her palm. A new message appeared, this one from him, perfect. Right where I wanted you. The words slammed into her with a force that made her legs shake. She spun in place, scanning the walls and the shadows, but there was no movement, no sign of anyone nearby. Then another notification blinked across her screen, this time from the Faceless account. Don't listen. Keep moving. Door ahead. She whipped her head forward and spotted it, an old, rusted metal door at the far end of the courtyard. Something inside her screamed not to trust either voice, but desperation left her little choice. She sprinted toward the door, her footsteps loud in the oppressive stillness, her hand reaching out to grasp the handle. Before she could pull it open, her phone buzzed again. She glanced down and felt her stomach drop. A photo filled the screen. Her frozen in mid-stride, her hand inches from the very door she was about to open. The angle was so close it felt impossible. She stumbled backward, the phone nearly slipping from her fingers as terror seized her. Whoever was taking these photos wasn't lurking far away. They were right there with her. She spun, shining her light wildly, her voice finally breaking free in a strangled cry, but nothing moved. Only her own ragged breathing filled the space. Another message from him arrived, calm and deliberate. Stop running. You're mine already. Her hands trembled as she tried to type, but before she could press send, the Faceless account interrupted. Trust me. The door is the only way. Her heart pounded as her mind twisted between fear and hope, each message pulling her in opposite directions. She felt trapped in a game she couldn't understand, manipulated by forces she couldn't see, and yet she knew she had no time left to hesitate. Lena's trembling fingers wrapped around the cold, rusted handle of the door as her phone buzzed violently in her other hand. The screen glowed with two messages that arrived almost simultaneously, one from him and one from the Faceless account. His message read, "Open it. I'm waiting." The Faceless account countered instantly with, "Don't trust the door." The contradiction tore through her already fragile nerves, and her breathing grew shallow, caught between the urge to flee and the terror of staying still. The night air was suffocating, the courtyard pressing in on her like a trap, and the silence was punctuated only by the pounding of her own heartbeat in her ears. She pushed the handle, and the door screeched open, its rust grinding against the frame. A sliver of darkness yawned before her, colder and deeper than the night outside. Just as she began to step inside, another photo appeared on her phone. This time it was her face, illuminated by the glow of her screen, her wide eyes staring into the abyss of the doorway. The realization that someone stood close enough to capture that exact moment shattered her remaining composure. She stumbled backward, phone clutched tight, tears welling as she whispered into the emptiness, begging to know who was there. A shadow shifted along the wall, and her instincts screamed. She bolted, turning away from the door, desperate to escape the courtyard altogether. Her phone buzzed with frantic frequency, messages flooding in so fast she couldn't distinguish one from another. She didn't dare stop to read them. She only ran, her shoes slapping the pavement, lungs burning as the buildings loomed, and the alleyways twisted around her like a maze designed to keep her lost. At last, the glow of a distant streetlight appeared ahead, cutting a pale circle into the night. She poured every ounce of strength into reaching it, her body threatening to collapse, but her will forcing her forward. As she stumbled into the light, her phone fell from her grip and clattered to the ground. The screen lit up one final time. Both accounts had sent their last messages together. His read, "You'll never escape me." The Faceless account's final words appeared directly below. "You're safe now." Her vision blurred as the night swallowed the words, and then the screen went black, leaving her alone under the flickering streetlight, unsure which voice had been telling the truth, and whether the danger was truly over. Thank you message for audience. Thank you so much for watching and spending your time with me tonight. Your support means everything. It's what keeps these stories alive. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more horror that will keep you awake at night. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember sometimes the scariest things are closer than you think.